Nobody in courtroom 7 that morning expected what was about to happen. The docket listed it as a routine traffic violation, an unpaid speeding ticket, $37, 5 minutes, next case. But the moment Marcus Teller walked through those wooden doors in his tailored navy blazer, gold cufflinks catching the fluorescent light like he owned the building, something shifted in the air. The court officer glanced at the clerk glanced at the gallery, and Judge Frank Caprio, seated behind the bench with the quiet authority of a man who has seen every flavor of human arrogance in 30-plus years on the bench, looked up from his papers and studied Marcus Teller the way a chess player studies a board before the very first move. This wasn't going to be 5 minutes, not even close. Marcus Teller, 34, regional sales director for a commercial real estate firm, drove a car that cost more than most people in that courtroom made in 2 years. He had a lawyer on retainer, a membership at a downtown fitness club, and, as the next 40 minutes would make unmistakably clear, an absolute, bone-deep conviction that rules were written for other people. He stood at the defendant's podium with his chin slightly elevated, shoulders relaxed, the posture of a man waiting for a valet rather than a judge. He didn't remove his sunglasses until the officer asked him twice. If you're watching this right now and you already feel the anger rising in your chest, good. Leave a comment below telling me what you think of people like Marcus. And if stories like this one restore some of your faith in justice, hit that subscribe button. Because this courtroom is about to remind all of us why dignity matters. Judge Caprio asked the first question the way he always does, gently, without edge, genuinely curious. "Mr. Teller, do you know why you're here today?" Marcus exhaled through his nose and said, "Yeah, a ticket. Some officer clocked me going 42 and a 35. I've been meaning to pay it, but honestly, I didn't think it was worth my time." The gallery didn't gasp, not yet, but a woman in the third row, a retired schoolteacher named Gloria Marsh, who had taken the bus to fight a parking ticket she genuinely could not afford, pressed her lips together very tightly. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. He asked Marcus if he had anything to say in his defense. Marcus shrugged and said, "Not really. Can we just get this done?" That's when the energy in the room changed. Not dramatically, not with thunder. It changed the way temperature changes before a storm, quietly, imperceptibly, until you realize you've been cold for a while without noticing. The judge looked down at the file. He flipped one page, then another. Then he looked up and said, very calmly, "Mr. Teller, it says here, this is your 4th appearance on a failure to comply for this specific ticket. You've been mailed 3 notices and received 2 phone calls from the court." Marcus shifted his weight. "I've been busy." Caprio's expression didn't change. "Busy," he repeated, as if tasting the word. "I see." What happened next was the first reveal, and the courtroom did not see it coming. The clerk handed the judge a supplementary printout. Caprio reviewed it for 12 full seconds without speaking. 12 seconds of complete silence is a very long time when 80 people are holding their breath. Then the judge said, "Mr. Teller, in the last 18 months you have received 9 moving violations in this city, 9, and in that same period you have not paid a single one." The gallery stirred. Someone whispered. Marcus's jaw tightened, and for the first time the sunglasses no longer made him look powerful. They made him look like he was hiding, but he recovered fast. People like Marcus always think they can recover fast. He straightened his cuffs and said, "Your Honor, I pay a significant amount of tax in this city. I'm not sure this is the best use of anyone's afternoon." If there was a moment the courtroom turned against him completely and permanently, that was it. An elderly man in the back row actually made a sound, a short, involuntary noise of disbelief. Gloria Marsh, the woman with the bus ticket, looked at Marcus Teller the way people look at something they cannot believe is real. Judge Caprio was still. He is always most dangerous when he is still. He let the silence hold for a long moment, and then he said quietly enough that the room leaned forward to hear it, "Sir, every person in this room pays taxes. That is not a privilege. That is a responsibility, just like stopping at a red light." The courtroom went silent, completely, utterly silent. Then came the moment nobody expected, the moment the story became something much larger than a traffic ticket. A young woman in the gallery, who had been waiting for her own case, raised her hand hesitantly and asked if she could speak. The court officer looked at the judge. The judge nodded. Her name was Danny Reyes, 26, a delivery driver. She stood and explained, voice trembling but steady, that 3 months ago a car had run a red light and struck her bicycle. She had lost her bike, her main source of income, and had been in physical therapy for her shoulder since. The police report listed the vehicle. The vehicle was registered to Marcus Teller's firm, and the driver had never stopped. The room didn't just go quiet, it went cold. Marcus Teller turned to look at Danny Reyes, and something in his face recalculated. His lawyer, who had been sitting casually beside him, sat up very straight. Judge Caprio looked at the report, looked at the registration, looked at Marcus Teller, and said nothing for a moment that felt like it lasted longer than it actually did. Then he said in that precise, unhurried voice that carries 30 years of moral clarity in every syllable, "Mr. Teller, you came into my courtroom today convinced that your time was more valuable than this process. I want you to look at that young woman and understand something. Your convenience cost her livelihood. What followed was not a speech, it was a dismantling." The judge spoke about the compact that holds a civil society together, the agreement that every person, regardless of income or wardrobe or the price of their car, operates under the same laws. He spoke about what it means to leave the scene of an accident, about what it communicates to the world when a person with every advantage treats accountability as optional. He spoke about Danny Reyes specifically, her medical bills, her lost income, her willingness to come to court anyway for a parking ticket she couldn't afford to ignore. "That," Caprio said, pointing quietly toward her, "is what this system is for. People who show up, people who respect what this room represents, not because it's easy, but because it's right." Marcus Teller said nothing. His cufflinks did not catch the light anymore. The judge did not just fine him. He referred the hit-and-run incident to the district attorney's office. He assessed maximum penalties on every unresolved violation. He ordered Marcus Teller to attend a mandatory court diversion program. And then, before dismissing him, he said the line that the court officer would later repeat to his wife at dinner, the line that circulated quietly for weeks afterward. "The law is not impressed by your resume, Mr. Teller. It never has been." Marcus Teller left that courtroom without his cufflinks catching any light at all. 3 months later, Danny Reyes received a settlement from the firm's insurance carrier. She bought a new bike. She also bought a used car, because she had decided she was done being as vulnerable on the road as she had been. Gloria Marsh, the retired schoolteacher, had her parking ticket dismissed after Caprio reviewed her fixed income documentation and waived the fee entirely. She cried briefly in the hallway. The court officer handed her a tissue. Marcus Teller completed his diversion program. His firm quietly settled 3 other outstanding civil matters that his lawyers suddenly became very motivated to resolve. His regional sales territory was reassigned. He drives more carefully now, by all accounts. And Judge Caprio went home that evening, as he does every evening, without fanfare, without a speech to the cameras, without needing anyone to tell him he had done something extraordinary. He had just done what he always does, looked at the truth, called it by its name, and made sure the room understood the difference between a person who respects the law and a person who has simply never been made to. That difference, it turns out, is everything. If this story hit you the way it hit me, if you felt every second of that silence, every moment of that reckoning, drop a comment below with the word justice and tell me what you think should happen to people who believe rules don't apply to them. Share this with someone who needs to see it. And subscribe, because the courtroom never runs out of stories like this one. Stories that remind us that dignity is not for sale, accountability is not optional, and sometimes the most powerful thing in any room is a judge who simply refuses to be impressed.